So today I want to talk about burnout. We talked the other day about how we go from the honeymoon being super excited and perhaps over giving and over committing at work, and that we are perhaps experiencing some imposter syndrome. So we're trying to work even harder to prove ourselves. That then progresses into a state of stress because we're worried about whether or not we're good enough and so on. There's a lot of self-doubt on this burnout journey. And then we experience stress, and if it happens over a long period of time, then we're experiencing chronic stress. Now, chronically high levels of cortisol have significant negative impacts on health and well-being. And so that begins to show up in the physical body. We begin to feel worn out, we're more prone to infections. It takes us a long time to recover from any exercise regimes that we have. And we just generally feel run down. I've covered all of that in greater detail a couple of days ago, but today I wanted to talk about burnout. So we've reached a point now where we are physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted. So let's talk a bit about what burnout looks like. For me, I really felt like nobody else in the world could possibly understand me. It didn't make logical sense to me, so how could I explain it to somebody else? You know, I could write on a piece of paper, yeah, I've got a great job, and I'm really successful at my job, and I've got a lovely house, and I'm happily married, and I've got all of these things, so surely I should be happy, and I'm absolutely miserable on the inside, and I'm kind of keeping up performance. Nobody knows that there's a problem. I'm showing up every day, and I'm doing my best, but I'm looking inside of me and I'm absolutely miserable. And I'd got to a point where I didn't recognize myself. So those are the two things for me that really showed up in burnout: this not recognizing myself, and it not making any sense, and feeling very, very alone. And now it turns out that these are common for people who are experiencing burnout. So if you're experiencing these, be reassured that you're not alone. I, for one, have been there, and I know that many others have too. The other thing that sometimes shows up is this kind of negativity and cynicism around our work. We've tried everything, we just give up by this point. I've tried everything and I'm done. I've used up all of my energy, I'm done. So what can be done about it? There's certainly plenty that can be done in terms of how we approach our work, boundary setting, what we feel is acceptable, learning how to say no to certain things without causing offense. So I personally felt that a lot of my self-worth and my identity was tied up in my success at work. So we kind of have to break some of that a bit, some of how we perceive our role in the world. And try and see our self-worth regardless of how we're performing at work. And actually, our performance doesn't have to suffer, and we can recover from burnout and stay in the same job. These things are possible. There's a burnout coach called Dex Randall who likes to say that the habits that got you into burnout will not get you back out. And I think he's so right. So the habits that get us into burnout are this beating ourselves up, there's perfectionism, there's going the extra mile, the always wanting to be the go-to person, and always having the answer, and always saying yes to people, always wanting to be able to support everybody around us. So we have this overworking, we've got this fear of judgment, and we've got imposter syndrome type stuff going on as well. So those are the kinds of habits that we need to get out of. And the sorts of habits that we need to get into are having a greater awareness, being more connected to our body, noticing when we feel the stress levels rise, notice what's triggering these stress levels to rise, having ways to manage that. So having ways to have different conversations around these stresses. So we're doing something differently about the stresses, but we also need to do something differently about the stress response and how we're managing our response. And some of that is with awareness. We talked about the negativity that people feel and this kind of apathy. And so there are things like gratitude. And if you practice gratitude over a period of time, you'll notice that actually your attitude becomes more positive. So there are plenty of things that can be done to help recover from burnout. Now, my program very much focuses on the body-mind and how we can use the body and how we can use mindfulness to raise our awareness. And my So my program's called Reboot from Burnout. It's a one-to-one burnout recovery program. You may like to check out other episodes of my podcast, which is Burnout Isn't Necessary. I really genuinely believe that burnout isn't necessary. It is avoidable. It's also recoverable. So if you are in a state of burnout, then there's plenty that you can do, and there are plenty of suggestions on the podcast. So I hope this has been useful to get a better understanding of what burnout looks like and what can be done about it. And there's plenty that can be done. So burnout is not necessary. We don't have to experience it. And if we are experiencing it, it is recoverable.